a human mechanic, inherits the galaxy's largest ship. His hands shake as he boards. The engine of the mining hauler groaned under his careful adjustments, and sparks flew like tiny stars in the dimly lit bay. He had worked on ships like this all his life, and yet today his hands shook, not from the engine, but from a message that had arrived at his compad earlier that morning. It was a simple, formal message. You have inherited the vessel known as the Colossus. At first, Jaren thought it was a joke. The Colossus. He had heard the legends from old engineers and star pilots in the cantinas. The largest ship in the galaxy, said to be bigger than entire orbital cities, lost during the Void Wars and never seen again. And now somehow it was his, a human, a simple mechanic from the mining colony of Kreltar. His hands shook as he held the compad. He tapped the message again, reading the lines carefully. There was a holographic map of the Colossus, hovering above the pad, showing a ship so massive that it made the mining hauler he worked on look like a toy. Jaren's heart raced. Could this really be happening? Could a human, an ordinary mechanic, truly inherit the galaxy's greatest ship? The journey to claim it was not short. He boarded a standard cargo shuttle, the engines humming a steady tune as it leapt into hyperspace. The stars streaked past the small window, and Jaren could not stop staring. He had traveled the colonies before, but nothing like this. The weight of the galaxy seemed to press down on him. Every system he passed, every star he crossed, reminded him that the Colossus was no ordinary ship. It was a legend, and now its legend was tied to him. When the shuttle emerged from hyperspace, the sight that greeted him was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Colossus hung in orbit above a barren planet, its hull reflecting the light of the nearby sun. It was immense. Its shadow swallowed cities, and its engines were so massive they looked like small moons. Jaren's hands shook again as the shuttle approached the docking bay. The automated system scanned him and approved his entry. No one had met him yet. No alien delegates, no galactic officials, just him and the ship. The airlock hissed open and Jaren stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, almost as if the ship itself was alive. Jaren ran his fingers along a control panel, and a faint glow responded to his touch. He frowned in surprise. No one had told him that humans could interface with alien ships in this way. Perhaps it was the human touch, so often underestimated, that made the difference. He walked further into the ship, exploring its enormous halls. Each room seemed larger than entire buildings back on Kreltar. There were chambers filled with strange machinery, engines that hummed with power, and storage bays that could hold entire fleets. He marveled at the scale, but also felt a creeping anxiety. How could one human ever control all of this? His first task was to activate the ship's core systems. He approached the main console, a massive interface of alien design, with buttons, holographic displays, and touch panels that seemed almost alive. He hesitated. One wrong move, and he could fry the systems, or worse, trigger some ancient security protocol. Jaren took a deep breath. He reminded himself that he had spent years fixing engines, repairing broken systems, and improvising under pressure. If he could fix a mining hauler after a plasma storm, he could figure this out. Slowly, he placed his hands on the controls. The panels lit up, responding to his touch. Lights flickered across the bridge like lightning across a stormy sky. As he activated the core, he discovered something remarkable. The ship seemed to recognize him, as if it had been waiting for a human. Systems that even the most brilliant alien engineers could not operate responded effortlessly to him. Engines hummed, shields aligned, and the navigation arrays unfolded like intricate flowers. Jaren could hardly believe it, but awe was short-lived. Just as he began to explore further, the main view screen lit up with incoming signals. Aliens, dozens of them, arrived in sleek predatory ships. Their appearance was intimidating, tall, armored, and with eyes that seemed to pierce the very soul. The message was clear. This inheritance is a mistake. No human should command the Colossus. Jaren's heart pounded. He had expected challenges, but not this soon. He studied the screen, taking in the fleet. They were well armed, ready to enforce their claim by force if necessary. Yet as he looked back at the bridge, he realized the Colossus was more than just a ship. It was a weapon, a fortress, a palace, and a fleet all in one. If he could master it, he could stand against them. He ran to the nearest maintenance bay. Panels opened to reveal complex machinery and engines that dwarfed his entire body. He began familiarizing himself with the ship's systems. It was overwhelming. There were systems for energy distribution, shield management, weaponry, communication, and navigation, all designed by species far older and more advanced than humans. But Jaren noticed something extraordinary. Certain controls responded to him in ways that seemed almost intuitive. A shield generator adjusted when he touched the panels. Weapon arrays aligned automatically. Navigation systems suggested courses. The Colossus seemed to trust him, and for the first time, Jaren felt a glimmer of confidence. Perhaps humans were not so powerless after all. Hours passed as he explored, repaired, and activated systems. He found a lounge with holographic maps of the galaxy, ancient archives of battles, exploration logs, and star charts. One by one, he absorbed the knowledge, realizing that the Colossus was not meant merely to be a warship. It was a vessel of discovery, diplomacy, and protection. As he studied the archives, the alien delegation made their move. Small craft began maneuvering aggressively, trying to breach the docking bay. Jaren's pulse quickened. He had never faced combat like this. Yet he trusted his instincts, a lifetime of tinkering and improvising guiding him. He activated the ship's defense systems, rerouting power to shields and weapons. The Colossus responded instantly. Alien ships approached, but the defenses pushed them back without a single shot fired. Jaren realized the truth. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. They had dismissed creativity, intuition, and adaptability as weaknesses. Yet here he was, a human mechanic, standing aboard the greatest ship in the galaxy, capable of feats even the most advanced alien species could not match. The alien ships withdrew, sending a final message. "This is not over, human," Jaren exhaled, a mix of relief and determination flooding through him. His hands still shook, but now they trembled with anticipation, not fear. He walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of challenges, dangers, and opportunities. The Colossus hummed around him, alive, waiting. Jaren placed his hand on the console and whispered to himself, "Let's see what humans can do." For the first time, he felt the thrill of being more than just a mechanic. He was the captain of a legendary vessel, the inheritor of the galaxy's greatest ship, and a symbol of human potential. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was his. And in that moment, Jaren knew one undeniable truth. Humans, small and fragile as they might seem, could rise to meet even the stars. And so, with trembling hands and a heart full of courage, Jaren Kess began his command of the Colossus, unaware of the challenges, allies, and enemies that awaited him, but ready to prove that humans were not to be underestimated. Jaren Kess had spent the first night aboard the Colossus, wandering its endless halls. The ship was alive with quiet energy, humming as if it had recognized its new master. Sleep came reluctantly. His mind raced with systems, engines, and alien technologies he barely understood. But with the sunrise, or at least the artificial light simulating a sun over the observation deck, he felt a renewed determination. The galaxy was watching, whether he knew it or not. Word had spread quickly that a human now commanded the Colossus. Many laughed at the idea. Humans were fragile, short-lived, and simple. But the few who understood engineering, who had heard the legends of human adaptability, whispered with surprise. A human at the helm of the galaxy's largest ship was unthinkable. Jaren had no time for whispers. His first challenge came quickly. The alien delegation from the previous day returned, this time in greater numbers. They refused communication. Their ships surrounded the Colossus like a storm. One ship broke formation and sent a scanning probe. The probe sent images back to Jaren, highlighting his new crew, or rather the absence of one. He was alone. He had expected assistance, trained officers, alien engineers who could operate parts of the ship he could not. But the Colossus, for reasons he did not yet understand, seemed to allow only him to interact fully with its systems. It was both a blessing and a burden. Jaren ran to the main control room, where holographic displays projected the positions of the incoming ships. His mind raced. He could not fight them in the traditional sense. He was one human against a fleet. But he had something the aliens lacked: creativity, improvisation, and the ability to think in ways no alien could anticipate. He activated the ship's defense systems. The shields glowed like liquid glass, forming an invisible dome around the Colossus. The alien ships fired, plasma beams striking the shields, causing ripples of light and heat. Jaren analyzed the patterns. Alien weapons were precise but predictable. Using the Colossus's vast engines, he maneuvered in ways no single ship could expect, dodging attacks while simultaneously feeding energy to the shields. For hours, he worked tirelessly. His hands moved over the controls, flipping switches, adjusting energy flows, and improvising. The Colossus responded as if alive, anticipating his moves, compensating for weaknesses. Slowly, the alien fleet began to falter, unable to predict the maneuvers of the enormous ship controlled by a single, clever human. Finally, the alien fleet retreated, sending a message that chilled Jaren. "You have survived this time, human." But the galaxy will not allow this forever. Jaren exhaled. The adrenaline left him exhausted but invigorated. He realized that the Colossus was not merely a ship, it was a test, a trial designed to prove that those who commanded it were worthy. And somehow, it had chosen a human. The days that followed were filled with learning and discovery. Jaren explored the ship's hidden systems, uncovering technologies that alien species had long forgotten or could not fully understand. There were engines capable of folding space, shields that could adapt in real time, and communication arrays that reached across light years. Most fascinating were the autonomous systems that seemed to recognize his touch. He found an engineering bay that dwarfed his home colony. Inside, ancient drones hovered, waiting for repair or guidance. Jaren realized he could repurpose them for tasks no human crew could manage alone. He activated a few cautiously. They hummed to life, recognizing him as their operator, following his instructions perfectly. For the first time, he felt that he could handle the immense responsibility of commanding the Colossus. Yet mastery of the ship was only part of the challenge. News of the human captain reached other parts of the galaxy, attracting both allies and enemies. Some species sent messages offering cooperation, others plotted in secret. Jaren realized that the Colossus was a beacon. Wherever it appeared, it shifted the balance of power. One morning, while studying star charts, Jaren discovered a pattern: trade routes, ancient battle sites, and unexplored systems all marked in a network. The Colossus held maps that could change the understanding of the galaxy's history. If he played his cards right, humans could claim a place among the great powers, not through conquest, but through discovery, innovation, and diplomacy. His training accelerated as he faced the next real test. A rogue fleet known as the Shadow Corsairs appeared along a nearby system. They were infamous for raiding unprotected colonies and starships, leaving destruction in their wake. A distress signal from a civilian outpost reached the Colossus. Jaren knew he could not ignore it. Using the ship's advanced sensors, he plotted a course that allowed him to intercept the Corsairs before they reached the colony. It was a delicate maneuver. The Colossus was massive and not built for speed in tight spaces. But Jaren's intuition guided him, and the ship responded. The engines bent space subtly, allowing the massive vessel to approach undetected. When the Corsairs arrived at the outpost, they found the Colossus waiting. Jaren used the ship's advanced defenses, but not in a way any alien commander would expect. He rerouted energy to create simulated attacks, tricking the Corsairs into retreating. Drones from the engineering bay disabled their weapons silently. In less than an hour, the threat was neutralized without a single casualty. The outpost survivors hailed him as a hero. For the first time, Jaren felt the weight of human potential in his hands. Not through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and courage, he had saved lives. The galaxy could not dismiss humans so easily. As he returned to the bridge, Jaren pondered the lesson. Strength was not only in firepower or numbers, it was in adaptability. Humans, underestimated for centuries, had a gift for innovation, improvisation, and courage. The Colossus, it seemed, had chosen wisely. The alien delegation returned again, more numerous and more threatening. This time, they brought warships capable of destroying entire fleets. But Jaren did not panic. He studied their formations, their predictable firing sequences, and their weak points. Using the Colossus, superior systems, and his human intuition, he devised a plan not of brute strength, but of strategy and improvisation. He activated cloaking subroutines long thought impossible, making the Colossus appear as a drifting asteroid. The alien fleet searched frantically, unable to locate the enormous ship. Jaren used the time to position the Colossus behind them, cutting off their escape routes. Then, without firing a shot, he forced the alien ships to retreat, their pride and strategy shattered. It was a victory not of war, but of intellect. Word of it spread across systems like wildfire. Humans, once considered weak, were now recognized as clever, adaptable, and fearless when underestimated. Jaren had become a symbol not just of power but of the human spirit. Even so, he was not without doubts. Alone aboard the ship, he often stared at the vastness of space and wondered how one human could manage such a responsibility. The galaxy was unpredictable, full of dangers he could not yet imagine. Yet every time he touched a console, every time the ship responded to him in ways no alien could manage, he felt a spark of confidence. The Colossus had chosen a human because it needed someone who could think beyond logic, beyond rules, and beyond fear. In quiet moments, Jaren explored the hidden archives of the Colossus. He found star charts of unexplored systems, logs of civilizations long vanished, and plans for technologies that could redefine travel, defense, and diplomacy. Each discovery made him realize that humans could not only survive in the galaxy, they could thrive. And then came the message from the Galactic Council, carried across encrypted channels. Captain Kess, your command is unprecedented. Your success is noted. Do not underestimate the consequences of human ambition. Jaren stared at the message, a mix of pride and apprehension filling him. Ambition. Perhaps they feared humans, but he knew that ambition alone was not enough. It was courage, ingenuity, and adaptability that made humans remarkable. And as he looked out across the stars from the bridge of the Colossus, he made a silent promise. Humanity would rise, not through fear or destruction, but through skill, heart, and the unbreakable human spirit. The days aboard the Colossus continued, each filled with learning, exploration, and small victories. Jaren grew into his role, mastering systems that alien commanders had considered impossible. Drones worked under his guidance, alien emissaries sought his counsel, and even the ships that had once mocked him began to respect the human mechanic who had inherited the galaxy's largest ship. By the time the first month passed, Jaren understood the truth. The galaxy had underestimated humans for far too long. One human, armed with courage, intelligence, and ingenuity, could achieve what many thought impossible. The Colossus was not just a ship, it was a symbol, a proving ground, and a new chapter for humanity. And for Jaren Kess, the journey was only beginning. Jaren Kess stood on the bridge of the Colossus, staring out at the endless stars. The galaxy had changed in the month since he first boarded the legendary vessel. His hands no longer trembled with fear. Now they shook only with anticipation. He had faced alien fleets, rogue pirates, and the skepticism of countless species. Yet every challenge had only proven one thing: humans could adapt, innovate, and survive where others failed. But the greatest test was yet to come. A message arrived on the Colossus' main screen. The sender was unknown, encrypted in a code that had baffled the best alien analysts. The message read simply, "The galaxy will not allow a human to hold the Colossus. Surrender or face destruction." Jaren frowned. The voice carried the weight of a powerful galactic faction, one with fleets that could destroy entire star systems. This was no simple challenge. It was a threat to humanity itself. He took a deep breath. The Colossus had taught him that fear could not guide decisions. Ingenuity could. Courage, quick thinking, and the willingness to act beyond expectation. That was the strength of humans. He called a meeting with the few allies who had joined him. Humans, aliens, and hybrids each respected his command. They crowded into the command hall, a massive chamber capable of holding thousands but now only occupied by a few. "Listen," Jaren began, his voice steady. "They think humans are weak. They think one mechanic can't command a ship that could crush their fleets. They are wrong. But we cannot fight them the way they expect. We fight smart. We fight together. The Colossus is not just a ship, it's a tool, and we are its crew." The plan was risky. The Colossus could not engage the enemy fleet directly without risking destruction, but it could outthink them. Jaren spent hours studying the fleet's formations, weapons, and communication patterns. They were strong but predictable. He realized that what humans lacked in raw power, they made up for in creativity. As the enemy fleet approached, Jaren activated a network of drones, ancient systems, and autonomous defenses within the Colossus. Drones zipped through space, invisible to sensors, disrupting communications and disabling weapons. Energy fields formed invisible traps, redirecting attacks harmlessly into space. The massive ship moved like a ghost, appearing where no one expected. The first wave of enemy ships fired, but their weapons struck nothing. The Colossus shifted positions faster than they anticipated, using gravity wells and hidden engines to bend their trajectory. Entire squadrons found themselves immobilized without a single shot from the human crew. Jaren smiled. This was human ingenuity at its finest. The aliens were strong, but humans thought differently. They improvised, they adapted, they survived. Yet the battle was not over. The enemy commander was cunning, adjusting strategies and predicting some of the Colossus' movements. Jaren knew that brute force or simple tricks would not be enough. He needed something unprecedented. He accessed the Colossus, Central AI, a system older than most civilizations, and began reprogramming its combat protocols. The AI responded to his touch, as if it understood that humans acted differently than aliens. Jaren fed it human intuition, improvisation, unpredictability, and creativity. The ship learned as he did, and together they became something greater than either alone. As the enemy fleet prepared for a final assault, the Colossus moved into position, hiding behind an asteroid field. The enemy commander believed they had trapped him, but Jaren had anticipated this. With precise timing, he activated a series of gravitational pulses, sending asteroids careening into the alien fleet. They scattered in chaos. The Colossus emerged from hiding, massive and unstoppable, but without firing a single shot. The enemy ships, demoralized and confused, retreated. The galaxy had witnessed it. A human had outsmarted one of the most feared fleets in existence. Jaren's victory spread rapidly. Across colonies and systems, humans were no longer seen as weak or expendable. They were clever, resourceful, and courageous. Even species that had dismissed humans for centuries now acknowledged their potential. But Jaren did not bask in victory. He knew the galaxy was vast, full of dangers yet unseen. He began exploring uncharted systems, seeking knowledge and allies. The Colossus was a vessel of discovery, diplomacy, and protection, and Jaren intended to use it for all three. In his travels, he encountered civilizations thought extinct, ancient technologies forgotten, and mysteries that challenged everything known about space and time. And in each challenge, Jaren relied not on weapons or fear, but on ingenuity, negotiation, and human resilience. One day, while scanning a distant nebula, Jaren discovered a network of derelict ships, ancient relics of a civilization that had vanished long ago. They contained technologies far beyond current understanding. While other species might have seized the resources for power, Jaren studied them carefully. He repaired broken systems, activated dormant engines, and learned from their creators. Humans were not conquerors. They were learners, innovators, and explorers. The Colossus became a beacon of hope. Wherever it appeared, systems once divided by fear began to cooperate. Jaren forged alliances, not through force, but through respect and ingenuity. Humans, long underestimated, were now seen as equal players in the galaxy's future. Even as he traveled, challenges continued. Rogue fleets, rival empires, and uncharted dangers tested his skills. But each time, Jaren relied on the human strengths that had brought him this far: courage, intelligence, creativity, and the refusal to be limited by what others thought possible. In quiet moments, he would stand on the bridge, hands on the console, and gaze at the stars. The Colossus hummed around him, alive, as if acknowledging the journey he had taken. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, but now humans had a place in it. A single human, a mechanic from a mining colony, had proven that courage, skill, and imagination could change the course of history. Finally, as he surveyed a newly charted system, Jaren felt a profound sense of achievement. The galaxy had tested him and he had risen to the challenge. But more importantly, humanity had risen, not through war or dominance, but through ingenuity, perseverance, and heart. Jaren smiled, hands steady now, as he activated the Colossus engines. The ship moved gracefully into hyperspace, a human at its helm, ready for the next adventure. He whispered to himself, a promise and a declaration: "Humans will rise, and we will meet the stars on our own terms." And with that, the Colossus disappeared into the void, carrying the hope of a species that had long been underestimated, but would never be ignored again.